Hello students, today in this video we are going to take up chemistry. So let's see what we are going to start today. So the chapter which we'll be taking up is periodic properties. That is periodic properties. So the picture that you can see in this given slide is of the young volunteer who actually made an attempt to classify so many elements, and he is none other than Niels Bohr. He is the one who actually gave the proper systematic arrangement of the elements which made the study of so many elements easier. So let's study the periodic properties, and before studying the periodic properties, we'll take up the different attempts done by the different scientists in order to classify the elements, and also why those attempts got failed and why Niels Bohr attempt was accepted. So let's learn in this video. So the topics which we'll be taking up is the introduction. We'll be taking the few attempts made by the scientist in order to classify, that is the Daubeney triad classification, Newland's law of octave, Mendeleev's periodic classification, modern periodic table, atomic properties and their variations along groups and periods. So let's start with this interesting chapter. As we all know that there are so many elements that exist in nature till now, and it is very difficult to study their properties separately because there are so many elements, and if you sit in learning the properties of a single element, and so it's impossible to learn about all the elements. We can recall 2, we can recall 3, we can recall 5, but not more than that, because there are so many properties like physical and the chemical properties which are related to each and every element. So it is very difficult to recall all the properties separately for an individual element. So in order to make the study easier, the classification of elements is done. So why classification is needed? Just to make the study easier, and it actually resolves a big confusion, or you can say it helps us in knowing the different elements in a proper manner. So as you can see that there are so many elements. For example, in this picture, we have few elements like we have gold, we have copper, we have sulfur, we have sodium, we have silver, we have silicon, and likewise we have so many elements, and still the discovery of many elements are still in pipeline. So how we are going to define the classification? Classification refers to the grouping of similar elements together and separating them from dissimilar ones. So classification means that similar elements, they are grouped together and they are separated from dissimilar ones. That means all those elements which have same kind of properties are placed together and they are separated from those elements which do not possess properties similar to the other elements. So many attempts have been made by different scientists in order to classify the elements. So now let us learn about the different discoveries. So the first discovery was made by Daubeney, and it is popularly called as Daubeney triad rule, or you can say Daubeney triad classification. So if you want to know about Daubeney, so we have a history related to Daubeney, that when he was born and what was his qualities. So John Daubeney was born in 1829 and he was the first to organize elements according to their properties. So he actually tried to group the elements in group of 3. That is, he classified the elements in group of 3, in which the 3 elements were placed together, and the group of 3 was called as triad. And these 3 elements resemble each other, right? So let us see that what other properties this triad actually possessed. So the basis of Daubeney triad classification was the atomic mass. He arranged the elements in order of increasing atomic masses and in a group of 3 elements together, that is in a triad, right? And if we arranged the elements in group of 3, that is in triad, and in order of increasing atomic masses, he could easily make out that these elements shows similarity in properties. So this kind of arrangement give rise to similarity, or you can say the periodicity in the properties. And one more thing was observed, that the atomic mass of the middle element was the arithmetic mean of the atomic mass of first and third element. So he actually classified on the basis of 3 things. Just write it down. One is the increasing atomic mass. He classified on the basis of increasing atomic mass. The second thing, that is the periodicity in properties, or you can say similarity in properties. Periodicity or similarity in properties, that is the similar properties repeat after regular intervals, and in this the interval is just we are talking about the triad, that is the 3 elements. And the atomic mass of the middle element, was the arithmetic mean of the atomic masses of other 2 elements. For example, if we have a triad like this, that is lithium, sodium and potassium. So this is a triad because it is a group of 3 elements, that is lithium, sodium and potassium. So when they were arranged, so you can see that it indicates that they are arranged in order of increasing atomic mass. And they also show periodicity in properties, because these 3, they possess similar chemical properties, as they all are alkali metals. So they are malleable, they are ductile, they are good conductor of electricity. So a lot of properties were similar among them. And moreover, the atomic mass of the middle element was the arithmetic mean of the atomic masses of first and third. Like we have the atomic mass for lithium as 7 and for potassium 39. So if we take the arithmetic mean, it comes out to be 23, which is by chance the atomic mass of the middle element. So this could be possible only when we arrange the elements in order of increasing atomic masses. So we could make out the similarity in properties, and the atomic mass of the middle element was the arithmetic mean of the first and the third. The similar 3 things are observed in the another triad, that is called as halogen triad. It is called as halogen triad because in it the halogens were arranged, and they were arranged in increasing atomic masses, as you can see, and the arithmetic mean of the first and the third elements, atomic masses of the elements, gave the atomic mass of the middle element, that is the bromine, which comes out to be 80 point something. So that means the atomic mass of the middle element was the arithmetic mean of first and third element, that is chlorine 35 and iodine 127. And even they all are halogens, that is they are salt producing. So lot of their chemical properties are similar. So if we consider the alkali group in detail, or you can say we consider the alkali triad in detail. So let's say this is an alkali triad, lithium, sodium and potassium, and these are their atomic masses, lithium 7, sodium 23 and potassium 39. So their chemical properties were similar, like all were metals, all react with water to form alkalis, and all of them, they possess valency 1, that is plus 1. And the atomic mass of the middle element was the arithmetic mean of first and third, which comes out to be 23, that is the atomic mass for the sodium. Similarly, he made an alkaline triad also, in which he arranged calcium, strontium and barium in order of increasing atomic mass. And he could actually see that there exists similarity in properties. That is the reason they were grouped together. So the similarity was that like all were metals, oxides of them were alkaline, and all of them possess valency 2, that is plus 2. And the atomic mass for the strontium, that is the middle element, was the arithmetic mean of first and third element. That is the atomic masses of first and the third element. That is 88. That means it is indicating the atomic mass for the strontium. Similarly, he made an halogen triad. So we have discussed, like the chlorine we have 35.5, iodine is 127, and arithmetic mean of the atomic masses of first and third give the result 80. That indicates the atomic mass for bromine. Similarly, there exists the similarity in properties, like all were non-metals, all react with water to form acids, and all of them possess valency 1, that is -1. And atomic mass we have already discussed. So there was a severe limitation to his, you can say, the discovery, that though he could make out certain triads, but he actually failed to arrange all the known elements in the form of triads. Right. So he could form only few triads. He could not he actually failed to use this law for the other elements. So he couldn't group all other elements. So he could make out only few triads. So this was the limitation. Another, you can say, attempt was made by Newland, and its discovery is called as Newland's law of octaves. He actually tried to arrange the elements in order of their increasing atomic mass. So the property which he focused was increasing atomic mass. But he tried to relate the arrangement of elements with the musical note. Like we know that in a musical note, we have 8 notes. We have 8 notes. So he actually related the elements with that he said that when we arrange the elements in order of increasing atomic mass, the properties of the 8th element, the properties of any 8th element is the repetition of the property of its first element. Like if we he made the you can say the classification in this order, and he said, like, if we are arranging the elements like this, that is that 8 elements together in horizontal rows, right? 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 in the horizontal rows, and 8 is placed below the first. So likewise, if we take in consideration Mg, let us consider Mg as 8th element. So its first element is going to be beryllium. Its first element is going to be beryllium. So according to him, every 8th element is actually showing the property that is the repetition of the property of its first element. So likewise, that means sodium resembles the lithium, magnesium resembles beryllium, aluminium resembles boron, silicon resembles carbon, phosphorus resembles nitrogen, sulfur resembles oxygen, chlorine resembles fluorine, and potassium resembles its first element, that is sodium. Calcium resembles its first element, like magnesium. So that means we can actually write the important, you can say that the properties that could actually help Newland in making his law of octaves. So the first thing is that he arranged the elements in order of increasing atomic masses. That was similar to the Daubeney. Second, he arranged the element in the horizontal rows. He arranged the elements in horizontal rows, right? And it was a row of 7 elements. And this type of classification resembled the musical note. And according to it, every 8th element shows the properties which is actually the repetition of its first element. So this is what was the Newland's law of octave. So this was the classification, that how he arranged the elements. So according to it, the property of every 8th element should be similar to its first element. Like if we are talking for sodium, so the property of sodium should be similar to its first element, that is lithium. So likewise, we can take any element, and that means if we consider that element as an 8th element, so it resembles the properties of its first element. That means silicon here resembles the carbon. So likewise, we can make out that which elements possess similar properties. But the major limitation was that he could classify elements only up to calcium. That is, only up to an element with 40 atomic mass unit. So he couldn't classify other elements in following these, you can say, the rules. So he actually failed to classify all the elements, and his classification suffered a major limitation. So next was Mendeleev. So Mendeleev was the one who actually tried next to Newland in classifying the elements. So according to Mendeleev, he actually said that the elements can be classified by taking into the consideration a special tabular form, that was periodic table. He introduced this periodic table, and at the time of Mendeleev classification, 63 elements were actually known. He described the periodic table, that is the chart of elements, which is prepared in such a way that elements with similar properties occur in the same group. So let me explain you. So periodic table is actually a chart of elements. Periodic table is a chart of elements in which the similar elements are placed together and they are separated from the dissimilar ones. So in the periodic table, we get to see these vertical columns. These vertical columns, as you can see, they are called as the groups, or you can say the vertical groups. And these horizontal rows, all the horizontal rows were termed as periods. They were termed as periods. So according to Mendeleev, the periodic table is the chart of elements in which the similar elements are put together and they are separated from dissimilar ones. And this periodic table consists of vertical columns, that is called as groups, and the horizontal rows, that is called as the periods. So this is what was the periodic table. So according to Mendeleev, he gave a certain law in order to classify the elements. So the basis of the classification of Mendeleev's periodic table was the property, the fundamental property, that was the atomic mass. According to Mendeleev, the properties of the elements are periodic function of their atomic masses. This means that if elements are arranged in order of their increasing atomic masses, we can get to see the repetition of similar properties after regular intervals of time. Or we can say that if the elements are arranged in order of increasing atomic masses, we see that there is the periodicity in the properties. So Mendeleev periodic table consists of 7 periods and 8 groups. So this was the Mendeleev periodic table, which had 7 periods, that is the horizontal rows. As you can see that there are 7 horizontal rows, and it had 8 groups. These are the 8 groups. As you can see in the 0 group also, but at the time of Mendeleev classification, this group wasn't present. It was added after the classification. So initially in the periodic table, the Mendeleev's periodic table, it had only 7 periods and 8 groups. And out of those 8 groups, 7 are for normal elements and 1 was for the transition element. Normal elements consist of metals and non-metals. We know that metals are those elements which are malleable, ductile, good conductor of heat and electricity. They are sonorous, they have high density. So it consists of metals. And if we talk about non-metals, non-metals are non-malleable, non-ductile, poor conductor of heat and electricity, non-sonorous, non-lustrous, but still we have few exceptions. So these are considered as normal elements. So 7 groups were for normal elements and 1 group was for transition element. Transition element are the elements which possess properties similar to metals as well as non-metals. Right. So this was the Mendeleev periodic table. His major achievement was that he was so confident in his discovery that he left gaps in his table. There were few gaps found in his table, and he left those gaps just because he was so confident that he thought that these elements would be discovered later, and they can be easily placed in the left spaces so that it won't disturb the whole periodic table. So we can say that he actually left gaps for the unknown elements. He thought that when these elements would be discovered later, they can be easily placed in the table without disturbing the other elements. So this was the major achievement, that he left gaps, and these gaps were actually filled by the elements. So he actually predicted the properties of undiscovered elements. So this was the major achievement of Mendeleev. So there were many merits of Mendeleev classification. He could actually prove certain things, like he could group the elements on the basis of atomic mass. And the second, we already discussed, that he actually left gaps for the undiscovered elements. That is, he could predict the properties of undiscovered elements. And actually these elements got discovered later, that is the gallium, scandium and germanium, and they filled those left gaps. Right, so that means he was an intelligent person. You know that the zero group was added after his discovery, and this group is full of inert gases. So even he could make out the discovery for the undiscovered inert gases. He could predict properties of several elements, as we discussed, like gallium, scandium, so on. So that means he was a genius man. He could actually predict errors in the atomic weights. While he was arranging the elements in order of increasing atomic masses, he was so confident that at certain places he could make out that the atomic mass of few element wasn't correct. And it was actually proved just on the basis of the properties. That is, he could make out the properties, and he was so you can say confident that he actually said the atomic mass actually assigned to this element was incorrect, and his discovery, or you can say his study related to the characteristics of the element, were correct. And actually it was proved. Like for gold and platinum, the atomic mass which was earlier assigned was wrong, and he could actually make out when he was arranging the elements on the basis of the atomic mass in his table. And there were certain anomalies also, like there was merits also, there was few demerits also. So what were the demerits of his classification? He couldn't justify the position of isotopes. So we can say that the position of isotopes could not be explained. We know that isotopes are those elements which possess same atomic number but different mass number. So like here he placed hydrogen. He didn't say that this hydrogen is protium, deuterium or tritium. Or if one hydrogen is here, then where will be the position for these two hydrogens? See, so he actually, you can say, didn't comment about the position of isotopes. Secondly, wrong order of atomic masses could not be explained. Like in this periodic table, he actually arranged the elements. He went so deep with the properties that he actually violated the increasing atomic mass rule at certain places. Like the atomic mass for argon is 40, and the potassium it is 30, and potassium is 39. So that means as this you can say that periodic table is in order of increasing atomic mass. So that means the potassium should come first, and then later there should be argon. But K is actually wrongly placed. That is, the argon is placed first and then the potassium comes. So that means he violated his own rule, that is the order of arranging the elements in order of increasing atomic masses. So the next classification was done by modern. Then came modern periodic table. So the next discovery was modern periodic table, and it is fully justified, and it has no limitation, and or you can say it has just few limitation, but it is accepted worldwide. And it was given by none other than the scientist Niels Bohr. This periodic table was made on the basis of the fundamental property, that is atomic number. So as we have done so many attempts, so this was the first attempt which was made on the basis of atomic number. So Niels Bohr said that the properties of elements are periodic function of their atomic numbers. That means when elements are arranged in order of increasing atomic numbers, then there could be periodicity in the configuration that leads to periodicity in their chemical properties. So I'll explain you again. He said that when we try to arrange the elements in order of increasing atomic number, we could see that there is, you can say somehow, the repetition of similar kind of electronic configuration at regular intervals, and due to which there was the repetition of similar properties at regular intervals. That is, the periodicity of chemical properties in elements could be seen. So this was the, you can say, the modern periodic table layout. But this table also consisted of this table also had the vertical columns that were called as groups, as we already discussed that these are vertical columns, and is also had the horizontal rows, that is periods. So it has two things. One is the vertical columns, that is groups, and the other is the horizontal rows, that is called as periods. So as you can see in the figure, this is the modern periodic table with groups. As you can see that we have different groups and different horizontal rows, that is the periods. So this is the first period. So as you can see that the first period has only 2 elements. In the second period, you can see that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There are 8 elements. Likewise, in third, we'll find 8. In fourth, it's 18. In fifth, it's 18. In sixth, it's 32. And in seventh period, it has rest of the elements. So in this periodic table, the number of valence electron actually decides the group to which it is placed. For example, if I consider sodium, we know that its electronic configuration is 11. We know that its atomic number is 11. So if we'll write the electronic configuration, it will be 281. As you can see that it has one valence electron. So the number of valence electron indicates the group in which it is placed in the periodic table. So in sodium, we get to see only one valence electron. So it is a member of first group. It is a member of first group. And the number of shells indicate the period in which it is going to lie. As you can see that it has 3 shells, so it will belong to third period. So its position is third period, first group. Likewise, we can do for other elements also. Let's take, let's say neon. So we know that atomic number for neon is 10. So first you are going to write the atomic number, then you will write the configuration. Now you can see that the valence electrons are 8. So the elements with 1, 2, or you can say that 1 and 2 valence electron, they are the member of first group and they are the members of second group. But the elements with 3 to 8 valence electrons, they belong to group which we come to know after adding 10 to their valence electron. So that means here the valence electron for neon is 8. So 8 comes in this manner. So we are going to add 10 and it becomes 18. So that means neon is the member of 18th group. Now let us find the period. So the number of shells are 2. So it belongs to second period. So let's make out this is the second period and this is neon. That is the 18th group and the second period. So this is how you can make out the position for different elements. So now in this periodic table, this is first group, this is second, this is third, fourth, it is mentioned. So the elements of first and second group, that is these ones, they are regarded as, and even this 13 to 17 elements, not the 18 group, just the 17, they are regarded as normal elements. That is the metals, typical metals and non-metals. And the elements from 3 to 12, they form transition elements. That is the one which possess properties similar to metals as well as non-metals. 57 to 71, this is 57 to 71, and these elements are placed below. That is this La to Lu, that is lanthanum to lutetium. So it forms the series of lanthanides. Then 89 to 103, it falls at this place. It is called as actinides. That is the series of actinides starting from actinium and ending at lawrencium. Right. So these are called as the inner transition elements. They are called as inner transition because these are transition and they are present inner to the transition. So that is why they are called as inner transition elements. So I think you got it. First two groups, typical metals, 13 to 17 non-metals, 18 that refers to noble gases, 3 to 12 transition elements, and these two elements, series, lanthanides and actinides, they are called as inner transition elements. So on left hand side, we have typical metals, and on right hand side, we have non-metals. Now in this, the hydrogen element has been placed at the top of the periodic table, or you can say it is placed at the top of first group. And we know that the rest of the elements in the group, they are alkali metals. They are typical metals, that is alkali metals. That is when their metal oxide is dissolved in water, it gives rise to alkalis, right? Strong bases. But hydrogen is exceptionally placed here because this periodic table is based on the basis of atomic number, and all those elements which have similar valence electron, they are placed in the same group. As we know that the atomic number for hydrogen is 1, configuration is 1. So that means valence electron is 1. That is the reason it is exceptionally placed among alkali metals. So valence electron for group 1 element, that is 1. Valence electron for group 2 will be 2. Valence electron for group 13 is going to be 3. For 14 it is going to be 4. 15 it is going to be 5. For 16 the valence electron is 6. For 17 it's 7, and for 18 the valence electron is 8. Now let's study about the characteristics of periods and groups. So the first characteristic which we are going to study is the atomic size. Now what do we mean by atomic size? As the name suggests, atomic size refers to the size of an atom. It refers to a size of an atom. Or we can say it is a distance from the center of nucleus to the outermost shell of an atom. So this is how we can define the atomic size. Now let's discuss how atomic size vary along group and how it varies along period. So along group, like as we are moving down, let us consider the first group, that is the alkali group, which is lithium, sodium, potassium, rubidium, cesium, and francium. So as we are moving down, that is along the group, we can see that every time the size is increasing. So how we are going to explain that? So we are going to write the atomic numbers, right? So the atomic numbers are this. We are going to write the electronic configuration. So it is 2881. So when we move down, we see that every time a new shell is being added. As you can see that in lithium, we have just 2 shells. In sodium, we have 3. And in potassium, we have 4 shells. So every time when we are moving down in a group, every time a new shell is being added. So addition of new shell will always lead to increase in size. So that is the reason that size of atom increases. So as you can see in the figure, lithium possess only 2 shells, sodium possess 3 shells, and potassium possess 4 shells. So obviously as the number of shells will increase, that means the size will also increase. So that is the reason along group size increases. Next we have along period. So as we move along period, the size decreases. The size decreases. So in order to explain, let us consider some period. So let us consider the third period, which has sodium, magnesium, this is aluminium, aluminium, silicon, phosphorus, sulfur. Likewise, you can consider so many elements of the same group. So now let's write their atomic numbers. So it is 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 and 16. Let's write their electronic configuration. It is 281, it is 282, 283, 284, 285 and so on. So what do we get to see in this case? We get to see that the number of shells are same. The number of shells are same. Like all of them, they possess 3 shells. That is the reason they belong to third period, because we know that the number of shells correspond to the period of an element in a periodic table. But every time we can make out, like as we are moving from sodium towards sulfur, that every time a new electron is being added. Like in sodium, we have 1 valence electron. In magnesium, it becomes 2. In aluminium, it becomes 3. So that means every time when we are moving along the period, a new electron is added into a shell. So due to this, what happens? The nuclear charge increases. That is, the nucleus has to attract its electron with more force. And when the nucleus will attract its electron with more force, so obviously the size will decrease. So along period, the size decreases. And if we talk about the group, we know that size increases. So this you have to make sure that you should know the logic about increasing and the decreasing of atomic size along group and period. Now let's do one sample problem. The sample problem is, which of the following is bigger in its pair? So the first option we have is lithium or carbon. Which is bigger? So let's write lithium and carbon. So lithium atomic number is 3 and for carbon we know it is 6. Let's write their configuration. So this is 2, 1 and this is 2, 4. So they both possess 2 shells. That means they are the member of the same period. But lithium is placed here because it's you can say that the valence electron is 1, so it belongs to first group and it belongs to 14th group, but they belong to same period. And we know that when in a period we move, every time a new electron is added to a same shell, due to which the nuclear charge increase and size decrease. So out of these two, carbon is going to be smaller and lithium will be bigger in size due to comparatively less nuclear charge. Now let's see between chlorine and bromine. Chlorine and bromine, they belong to a same group. They are halogens. So halogen group is fluorine, chlorine, bromine and iodine. So here we have to focus just between chlorine and bromine. So we know that when we move along the group, every time a new shell is being added. A new shell is being added, due to which size increases. So out of chlorine and bromine, as bromine is placed below, so obviously the bromine is going to have an extra shell. So that is the reason bromine is going to be bigger in size in comparison with chlorine. Let's see for beryllium and magnesium. Beryllium and magnesium. We know that beryllium and magnesium, they are placed like this. They are member of same group. Beryllium is placed above and magnesium is placed below. So we know that along group when we move, the shell increases, therefore the size also increases. So out of this, these two, the magnesium is going to be bigger in size. So this is how you're going to find. First you have to write the atomic numbers, then you have to write the configuration, look for their places in the periodic table, and then you can easily answer because you will be following the trend, the logic behind, so you can easily pick the bigger or the smaller element from any of the given elements. Second question we have is, compare the size of cation and anion. We know that cation is an element with positive charge and anion is an element with negative charge. An atom is neutral. Atom is neutral. So let's compare their sizes. So if somebody loses electron, it acquires positive charge. Right. So if I talk about sodium, let's say the configuration for sodium is 281. So if it loses one electron, it becomes this. that is 2,8, the charged electropositive ion. So as it has lost its complete shell, so obviously its size will decrease. It will be smaller in comparison with its own atom. That means if we compare the size of sodium and sodium cation is going to be smaller because it has actually lost its complete one shell. Now let's talk about anion. Let's say we have chlorine. We know that the chlorine electronic configuration is 287 and it has a tendency to gain one electron, then only it can form the anion, that is Cl negative. Now after gaining, its configuration becomes 288, and whenever the electrons in the same shell are increasing, so obviously nuclear charge also decrease. So we can say that cation is always going to be smaller in comparison to the atom. But if we talk about the anion is always going to be bigger. It will be bigger because though the electrons are added, but still there will be more repulsions between the electrons, due to which their size will increase. So anion is comparatively possessing the more size. So anion possess. Next we have another sample problem. Compare the size of elements in pair. So we have aluminium and we have aluminium ion. So one is aluminium and one is aluminium ion. We know that the cations are smaller in size. So out of these two, aluminium 3 positive is going to be smaller and aluminium is going to be bigger in size. Similarly, we have fluorine and fluoride ion. So if we compare these two, it is formed by gaining electrons, and by gaining, the number of repulsions in it increases, due to which the nuclear charge decrease and size increase. So fluoride ion will have the you can say the more bigger size as compared to the fluorine. Another property is ionization energy. Now what do we mean by ionization energy? So as I told you that metals, they have the tendency to lose electrons. Metals possess the tendency to lose electrons. As after losing electrons, they form electropositive ions and they attain the stable electronic configuration. Now how the metals are going to lose electrons? For losing the electrons, they need certain energy from outside. So if we'll supply the energy from outside, it can actually knock out the electron from the valence shell of an atom. So we can say that ionization energy is that energy which is required or which is actually used in order to you can say knock out the loosely bound electron from the outermost shell of an atom, and this is done only when the atom is present in its gaseous state, because in gaseous state the nuclear charge is somewhat less, so electron can be easily knocked out. Now how it varies along group and period. So ionization energy is directly proportional to the size, right? Or you can say that it depends upon size. How it depends upon size? Like if more is the size, less is the ionization energy. And if less is the size, more is the ionization energy. Now let's see how ionization energy varies along group and period. So before we proceed, you should know that ionization energy is inversely proportional to size. As more is the size, lesser is the ionization energy. The reason being, see, if the size is more, that means the size is huge. So obviously the nuclear charge is going to be less. Nuclear charge is going to be less. That means nucleus is not exerting that much force on the valence electron to attract them towards itself. And if their attraction is not so strong, so obviously the lesser amount of energy can easily knock out the electron. So that means when the size is more, ionization energy is less, and if the size is small, the ionization is going to be more. The reason being because when it is small in size, the nuclear charge or the nucleus attraction towards outermost electron is quite high. Therefore, the ionization energy will be high. So now let's start with group. what do we get to see in group? So as we move in the group, the ionization energy decreases. Let's consider the first group, lithium, sodium, potassium. Let's write their configuration, 21, 281, 2881. So when we are moving down, we see that every time a new shell is being added. As lithium possess only 2 shells, K and L, sodium possess 3 shells, potassium possess 4 shells. So every time a new shell is being added. Addition of a shell means that its size is increasing and nuclear charge is decreasing. Now, if the nuclear charge is less, if the nuclear charge is becoming less, so obviously the energy required to remove electron will be very less. Therefore, along the group, size is increasing. Therefore, ionization energy decreases down the group. That means lesser energy can easily eject the electron from the outermost shell of an atom, but it occurs only when the atom is in its gaseous state. Now let us see that how it varies along period. Along period, it increases. So let's consider a period. Let's consider the third period, in which we have sodium, magnesium, aluminium, silicon, and these are their respective configurations. So as we are moving along period, what we can see that every time a new electron is added to a same shell, and addition of this electron to a same shell means nuclear charge increases, and due to which the size decreases. Now, if the element possess small size and high nuclear charge, so obviously the energy required to remove the electron is going to be very, very high. So therefore, along period it increases and along group it decreases. Now let's do one sample problem. So the problem is, out of two elements with atomic numbers 19 and 16, which will have the higher ionization energy and why? So that means we have two elements and their atomic numbers are 19 and 16. So which of them will possess higher ionization energy? That could be make out while we are writing its electronic configuration. So we have to write its electronic configuration. So after writing the electronic configuration, we can easily make out that they belong to the different periods and groups. It belongs to the fourth period. Let's say it belongs to the fourth period, and this belongs to the third period. So that means they both are of different periods. So out of them, what we get to see that the atomic number 16, that is an element with 16 atomic number, that is sulfur, will have higher ionization energy because of its small size and high nuclear charge, because it is placed here and it is a metal, that is the potassium, and it is placed at this place because it belongs to first group, right? You can write it belongs to first group and it belongs to 16th group. So as we move in a period, we know that when we move in a period, every time a new electron is being added, due to which nuclear charge increases and size decreases, and due to which its ionization energy becomes quite high. Another question is, compare first, second and third ionization energy for magnesium. So let's write magnesium. We know the atomic number is 12 and its configuration is 282. It's not stable as it possesses 2 electrons in its valence shell. So in order to attain stability, or in order to complete its octet, it will lose its 2 electron. Right, but it cannot lose its 2 electron in one go. It will do one by one. So first it will lose its 1 electron, right? And after losing 1 electron, it will acquire Mg positive. And its configuration will be 281. That means still it is unstable. So it will lose another electron and it will form Mg, and now its configuration will be 28. Now it has attained octet, so it becomes stable. So in forming Mg to Mg positive, the energy that is used is the first ionization energy. And for the removal of another electron from this Mg positive, the energy is ionization energy 2. And now when it is converted into Mg, that is 2,8, that is Mg2 positive. Now, if we want it to lose one more electron, so it will form Mg3 positive, and now its configuration will get disturbed. And the energy required, let's say, will be ionization energy 3. So now we have to compare ionization energy 1 with 2 and 3. So what we get to see that first ionization energy of magnesium is quite low because of its bigger size, and when it keep on losing electron, it forms cation, and cation is always smaller, and due to its small size, the nuclear charge increases. Therefore, the removal of electron becomes quite difficult. Now, if we talk about the third ionization energy, that is quite higher. First is going to be higher than second, right? And out of second and third is going to be very high, because in third, we are disturbing the noble gas configuration. So that means it is going to be very, very high. Next property we have is electron affinity. Like the atom can lose electron, in a similar manner, atom can gain electron also from outside. So when we remove electron, we have to supply it with energy. That means atom absorbs energy. But when we add electron, it releases energy. It releases energy. And this energy which is released when an electron is added to the outermost shell of an atom, when it is in gaseous state, this energy is called as electron affinity. Now let's see how it varies along group and period. So along group, it decreases. Like the ionization energy was decreasing, similarly it is decreasing. The reason being, as we are moving down, as you can see that every time a new shell is being added, due to which the nuclear charge decrease and size increase. So now when size increase, that means nuclear charge is less. So it will have quite less attraction for the incoming electron, and that is the reason the energy that is released by an atom will be very, very less. Right, so along group, it decreases. So you are going to write like this: as we move down, every time a new shell is being added, due to which its nuclear charge decreases, size increases, due to which less energy is released to remove an. Now let's see how it varies along period. Along period, it increases. Let's consider the third period, that is we have sodium, magnesium, aluminium, silicon, and we can easily write their configuration. So along period it increases because we can get to see that every time a new electron is added to the same shell, and addition of this new electron leads to increase in the nuclear charge. It will lead to the increase in nuclear charge and decrease in the size. Now, when nuclear charge will increase, obviously it is going to possess more attraction towards the coming electron. Therefore, due to attraction, large amount of energy is released. So, or we can say electron affinity is going to be higher. So, along period, electron affinity increases. Let's do one question. Can electron affinity be positive? Give example. Electron affinity positive means that electron affinity, till now we have studied that it is the energy released when an electron is added to the outermost shell of an atom. Energy is released, that means electron affinity is negative because the energy is released by the system. So it is asked in this question, can it be positive? Yes, it can be positive or negative depending upon the attraction towards incoming electron. If there is an attraction, then it is going to be negative. But if there is repulsion, that means an atom doesn't have a tendency to accept electron. Like inert gases, they don't accept electron. So in that case, if we need to add an electron, we have to supply it with energy. So in that case, electron affinity is going to be positive. Next question is that we have to compare the electron affinity of fluorine and chlorine. We know that in a group, fluorine is placed above and then we have chlorine. So as we move down, so obviously the size increases and nuclear charge decreases. So out of both, the nuclear charge is more for fluorine. Therefore, it should have the more tendency to accept the electron in comparison to chlorine. But this is an exceptional case, though the fluorine is smallest of all the elements, or you can say it possesses the highest nuclear charge, or it is highly electronegative, but still chlorine possesses higher electron affinity than fluorine. The reason being that fluorine is too small in size with very high nuclear charge. Therefore, the incoming electron experiences the inter-electronic repulsions, due to which the energy release is comparatively less as compared to the chlorine, because attraction becomes quite less in comparison to chlorine. Let's talk about chemical reactivity now. Chemical reactivity means tendency of an atom to lose or gain electron. As we know that in a group, chemical reactivity decreases in case of non-metals, but if we talk about metals, then it increases. The reason being, when in a group, like we have an example of alkali group, when we are going down, they have tendency to lose electrons. Metals, they have tendency to lose electrons. But when we are moving down, the size is increasing and ionization energy is decreasing. So that means they can easily lose the electron. So that means their reactivity is increasing. But if we focus on non-metals, let's say we have the halogen group, right? Fluorine, chlorine, bromine, and iodine. We know that non-metals, they have tendency to gain electrons. They have tendency to gain electrons. But when we are moving down, the size is increasing, due to which nuclear charge decreases. Nuclear charge decreases means that the nucleus has lesser tendency to attract the electrons, due to which the reactivity, that is the electron affinity for them, is decreasing, because attraction towards the incoming electron is decreasing. So we can say that as we move down in the non-metallic group, chemical reactivity decreases. So a long period, it decreases and then it increases. So if we talk about periods now, so let's talk about periods. So it decreases first, because we know that when we are moving from sodium to magnesium, the size is becoming quite small. Ionization energy is decreasing. But we get to see that there is sudden increase, because as we move in a period, we know that the size is decreasing, nuclear charge is increasing, and we come across non-metals, and they have tendency to attract electrons. Therefore, a long period, it first decreases, but then it increases. Let's do a sample problem now. We have the following elements belong to different groups. We have L, M, N, O, and P element, and they belong to different groups. We have to find out that out of them, which is most reactive and which is least reactive. We know that first group, second, third, fourth, and fifth. So if we talk about size, L is going to have the bigger size. It is going to possess the bigger size, and P is going to be smaller among them. So which will be more reactive? So in this case, L is going to be most reactive and least reactive will be P, because of its smaller size. Now let's talk about metallic character. What do we mean by metallic character? Metals are those which have tendency to lose electron. So metallic character here refers to as the tendency to lose electrons, and that is possessed by metals. That is the reason the property name is metallic character, that is the metals. So how it varies along group? Along group, the metallic character increases. The reason being, as we move down the group, every time a new shell is being added, due to which the nuclear charge is decreasing, size is increasing, and ionization energy also decreases. That means we have to supply small energy in order to eject an electron, or you can say to remove a valence electron. So obviously, as we move down, the metallic character increases down the group. So this is what is written. As we know, down the group, size increases, so valence electrons become more away from nucleus. So that means nuclear charge decreases. Therefore, ionization energy also decreases. Therefore, the metallic character increases down the group. Now, how it varies along periods? Along periods, it decreases. And we all know that when we are moving in periods, these are metals, but when we are moving on the right hand side, the size is decreasing, or you can say nuclear charge is increasing. So tendency to gain electron is more in comparison to the tendency to lose electron. So obviously metallic character decrease as we move along any period in the periodic table. Metallic character decrease and tendency to gain electron, that is the non-metallic character, increases. And this is because as we are moving, the size decrease along the period, due to which nuclear charge increases. That is, the tendency to attract the incoming electron is quite high. So the elements will have tendency to gain electrons, not to lose electrons. So we can say that non-metallic character increases along the period and metallic character increases down the group. Let's do another question. Which is most metallic out of them? We have few options and we have to make sure that we get a correct option which corresponds to the most metallic nature out of these given. So these all elements belong to a same group. We can write lithium, sodium, potassium, rubidium, cesium, francium. They are first group members. So we have this lithium, we have this francium, we have rubidium, and we have sodium. So out of them, which is most metallic? Obviously the one which with the maximum size is going to be most metallic because it will possess the least ionization energy. So out of them we can make out francium is placed at the bottom. So that means francium is biggest of all, due to which its ionization energy is least and it is most metallic. Another question is, out of them, which is non-metallic in nature? So let's write, it is lithium, sodium, potassium, rubidium, cesium, francium. Again, the first group members. And the options we have are lithium, sodium, this is sodium, lithium, sodium, potassium, rubidium, cesium, francium. So this is sodium, this is potassium, we have rubidium, and we do have lithium. So which is going to be non-metallic? So out of them, the one which will possess the smaller size will be much closer to non-metallic character. So out of them, which is going to possess the smaller size? Obviously the element which is placed at the top. So that means lithium is smallest of all these given elements in an option. Due to its smaller size, it is placed above. Therefore, it possesses non-metallic character, or you can say it possesses the least metallic character. Another question we have is, out of all, which is non-metallic in nature? So we have this periodic table and we have to make out which is most non-metallic. Non-metallic means which have more tendency to gain electrons or which is smallest in size. So the one which is smallest is fluorine. So fluorine, due to its smallest size in the whole table, is considered to be most. Now, what are the advantages of long form of periodic table which we studied, which actually helped us in studying so many atomic properties and relate the properties with groups and periods? So let us see that what are the advantages of long form of periodic table. It is easy to remember and reproduce. It is based on the atomic number, which is more reliable and the fundamental property. And the problem of the position of isotopes is being resolved, because according to long form of periodic table, the position of element, like if we have hydrogen placed at some place, so this position is the same for the isotopes also. That means isotopes are not separately placed in the long form of periodic table. All the isotopes of the given element acquire the same position in the periodic table. Now let's do a few question and answers. First question is, use Mendeleev table to predict the formula for oxides. We have K, C, Al, Si and Ba. Potassium, carbon, aluminium, silicon and barium. So let's make out the formula for the oxides. Potassium possesses the valency 1 and oxide 2 negative. So what is going to be the formula? It is going to be K2O. Second, we have carbon. Carbon is a non-metal, and we know that it combines with oxygen to form a molecule that is CO2. Third is aluminium. Aluminium valency is 3 positive and oxide is 2 negative. So after crisscross, the formula obtained is Al2O3. Let's do for silicon. Silicon is a non-metal, so its oxide is a kind of molecule, or you can say a network of the structure, which formula SiO2. Another is barium. The atomic number for the barium, the valency of the barium is 2 positive, and for oxygen it is 2 negative. So the formula that we get is BaO. Another question, besides gallium, which other elements have since been discovered to fill the gaps left by Mendeleev in his periodic table? So they were germanium, polonium, scandium. So these were the elements which were discovered, and they actually filled those gaps which were created by Mendeleev for the undiscovered elements. Another question is, what do you think the noble gases are placed in a separate group? Why do you think the noble gases are placed in a separate group? They are most non-reactive because their octet is complete, so their properties do not resemble with any other group. So therefore, they are placed in a separate group. Another question, name two elements that have similar properties. Name two elements Name two elements that have the similar chemical reactions that are similar to magnesium. So obviously the elements which will have the same valence electron as that of magnesium is going to possess the similar chemical reaction. So that means magnesium we know belongs to second group. So all the elements of the same group will have the similar chemical properties. Another question is, which element has two shells and both are completely filled? So that means we have to predict an element with two shells and two shells are complete. So it comes out to be 10. So that means 10 refers to neon because the atomic number for neon is 10. So first option is neon. Identify the element which has the electronic configuration 2A2. 2A2 means atomic number is 12. So it belongs to magnesium. So the answer is magnesium. Predict an element with 3 shells, KLM, with 4 electrons in valence shell. So that means it's like this. So if you add up all the electrons, the answer will be 14. And 14 atomic number belongs to silicon. So silicon is the correct answer. Predict an element of total of 2 shells and with 3 electrons in valence shell. So if we'll add, it becomes 5. So it belongs to boron. Another is, predict an element which has twice as many electrons in its second shell as it is in first shell. So let's say the first shell possesses 2. It is possessing the twice electrons present in the first shell. So that means it is 4. So it comes out to be 6. That is the carbon. Another question is, the position of 3 elements A, B, C in the periodic table is shown like this. And we have to predict few things. First, state whether A is metal or non-metal. As we can see that A belongs to group 17 and its configuration is 287, and we know that the element with 7 valence electron is a non-metal. So the correct answer that it is a non-metal. Another question is, whether C is more reactive or less reactive than A. So C will be less reactive than A because they are the members of same group, that is 17, that is the halogen group, and we know that as we move down, the tendency to accept electron decrease because nuclear charge is decreasing. Third option is, will C be larger or smaller size than B? So it belongs to group 16 and this belongs to group 17. So obviously if we compare two, right? So C is going to possess the smaller size than B. because a long period when we move, the size decreases. Next question is, which type of ion will be formed by A? A is a member of 17 group, so it will accept one electron and it will form A negative ion, that is the anion. So the answers, as we have already discussed, non-metal, more reactive than A, C will be larger, and negatively charged anion will be formed by A, which is called as anion. Another question, when Mendeleev gave his periodic table, how many elements were known? Mendeleev actually attempted to classify 63 elements. What is electronegativity, also named most electronegative element of the periodic table? Electronegativity refers to the property to attract the shared pair of electron more towards itself. That means the smaller the size of atom, it will have higher nuclear charge and it will attract the electron more towards itself. And name most electronegative, obviously the smallest element of the periodic table will be most electronegative, that is fluorine. Another question is, out of alkaline earth metals, that is beryllium, magnesium, calcium, strontium, barium and radium, which is radioactive? So radioactive is radium, and which is smallest? So obviously the first one is going to be smallest, so beryllium, which is going to be less reactive. So obviously the one with lower ionization energy and the bigger size is going to, smaller size is going to be less reactive. So the correct answer is beryllium.